The format of tonight's meeting is to have a guest speaker share their experience, strength and hope on how the Alcoholics Anonymous program of recovery is working in their lives for 15 to 20 minutes. Tonight we have asked Dave to share.
God, help me to set aside everything I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, and everything I think I know about my recovery. All for a new experience of you, God, a new experience in myself, a new experience in my fellows, and a much needed new experience of my own recovery. G'day everyone, my name's David and I'm an alcoholic. Through the grace of God and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I've been sober since the 25th of November 2005. And since that day, I haven't had a drop of alcohol, which is a miracle. How it was and how it is now. I was brought up in country Victoria in a town called Wodonga, the youngest of 9 children, into an alcoholic family. Father was an alcoholic, my mum I would call a rageaholic. My early experience of life was I was just afraid all the time. I wet the bed until I was 12 years of age. I was afraid of my father, I was afraid of my older brothers, I was afraid of my older sister, especially my older sister. She seemed to have some kind of aura and power about her. She'd already left home by the time I was about 2 or 3, but she came, visited nearly every day, and it was always a big event when she arrived. But I was most afraid of my mother, because she was the one who dealt all the discipline out and the physical stuff, and she used to get a fair few beltings from her, and I was always afraid of her wrath. And she was a disciplinary one, and Dad was basically absent. He was the father of 9 children, but he was a loner. He was an interesting guy, and wasn't around much. He earned the money, but he worked odd hours. He was never around when we were awake. He used to sleep during the day. When I did see him, it was usually when he was having a bender, and that was the only time he ever stood up to Mum. So thus I was a very afraid kid. I was, if I'd be honest, I used to, as I grew older through my teens, my early 20s, I used to pretend that I wasn't scared then, but I was. If I'd be really honest about what it was like for me as a kid, I was shit myself most of the time, at school, at home. Home was worse than school. I remember school breaking up for Christmas and all the kids being excited about going home for Christmas, and I was depressed because I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go home because I knew what was going to happen. It wasn't much fun, and I'm not saying that all that stuff as if I got a resentment for my parents or whatever. I look back and the way it is for me now in my heart, I love them. I love my mum and dad. They did the best they could have. I had my first real drink when I was 14 years of age. It was the beginning of 1986, and my older sister had taken me on a camp trip with all her husband's family, and I remember distinctly that I had 9 stubbies, because that's how many my brother-in-law was having, and I was keeping up with him, and they were making mention of how many drinks I was having at the time, because they were proud of me, I guess, I don't know. But it was an amazing event, because I had a couple of beers and I wasn't afraid anymore, and I thought, this is pretty good, I'll keep going. And so for a kid who was too shy to be able to talk to an adult, and if he did, he'd mumble something out, to being a loud party kind of kid. And then that particular night I was with about 15 or 20 adults, and I remember I pissed the bed again in a hut that we were all sleeping in, and also vomited in front of everybody. And I remember being very, very sick. But I remember waking up the next morning, and the thing I was most afraid of was my mum's wrath again, and what she would do if she found out that my sister kept me away from home for the next 12 hours to make sure that I'd get home and not be too sick. Mum passed away about 4 months after that, and I remember her physical violence on me in the last year or two it got easier because she was too sick to hit me, and she died of cancer and she sort of faded away. But when she passed away, as I mentioned before, she was kind of the only parent. So Dad wasn't a parent; he was the breadwinner, basically. So within a year after Mum passed away, I was drinking regularly on the streets around town. I got expelled from school pretty quickly. They suspended me quite a few times first. They sent me to a psychiatrist who's in jail now for pedophilia. He didn't get to me because I was probably about the same height as I am now, but 60 kilo. So he just thought I was just too much of an oddball to have a crack at. But but that was the way that my school tried to deal with what I was going through. And then I came back within a week. I was expelled, and expelled from a private, expensive school. There was a big party at home, and we all got drunk. That was 15. So then I left home. I left Wodonga. My favourite view of Wodonga is the one in the rear vision mirror. It's a lot of stuff that happened there that I've had to deal with, and now I'm glad to have moved on from that part of my life. So over the next 14 to 22, I did 1 year of school up in Canberra to try and finish high school, but that failed as well. So by the time I left school, I couldn't read or write. Because of the fear I had as a kid, I'm pretty sure I was completely dyslexic, and I had no idea how to read or write. And to get up and do anything in front of people in the classroom was just absolute terror for me, so I'd rather be a smart ass to get out of it. But anyway, after school I had a series of dead-end jobs until about 19, 20 I went back to Canberra and got myself a job running plumbing supplies, and then I ended up becoming manager, and I thought I had it going on. But my drinking was completely out of control early on. By the time I got to 22, I remember I went on a bender with a group of friends out to the parks races, and it was 3 days of constant drinking and drugging. And on the way back from that trip, I had a psychotic episode of a seizure. I can't really explain what happened to me, but they rushed me to hospital. I was going in and out of consciousness, and I was pretty convinced I was going to die. And because I just completely overdone it, and the pain that I was having in my chest and my head, I thought it was all over. I didn't die, but obviously, and then over the next 3 weeks I had so much fear about what had happened that I was completely in fear of my life. I was having anxiety attacks. My sisters used to tell me about anxiety attacks, and I didn't know what they were talking about. And all of a sudden, after this massive bender I had, I knew exactly what they were talking about, and I was just in a constant state of fear. And the only time I felt good was when I had a handful of Valium in my hand I could swallow and go to sleep. But I woke up and I go straight back into the anxiety. Anyway, cut a long story short, what I did was, the fear was so great that I decided death has got to be easier. And so I was on a cliff face in central New South Wales, and I decided I was going to kill myself. And I, standing on the edge of the cliff, and I don't know how it happened, but it's a hard thing for me to explain, but it was the only time in my life that I did something 100% since or before. That I asked higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, show me something or take me. Because I was going to take that step. And I was shown. And what happened next was something I can't really explain, but revelation, whatever, but a face appeared to me out of the sky, and I felt completely connected to it. It was a face of just complete compassion and love. I remember I had my hand on a rock on the cliff, and I looked at my hand. I could see through my hand through the rock, and I could see that. Well, I had an unbelievable spiritual, mystical experience. It was amazing. I felt complete connection and oneness with the universe, coming from a place of total fear. So it was like a slingshot going from one kind of experience of life until the complete opposite. I drank for another 10 years after that. And but what that experience did to me was I wanted to know what the hell that was and what happened. So I travelled around the world, went to places like Endeavour Academy. I studied Buddhism. Did transcendental meditation for 4 years. Endeavour Academy was the biggest one. I lived in America for a year and a half, in Germany, studying the Course in Miracles, and I'm actually one step off being a minister for the new Church of Full Endeavour, which is a church which teaches the Course in Miracles. And I was doing these radical, lofty spiritual teachings, and I was still sneaking out to have drinks and get blind. And so it was something else that I needed. I don't really understand why that is, but it wasn't stopping me from drinking. The turning point was when I was 33. I'd come back to Australia, and I was trying to get back to America to live, get a visa, and my visa was denied. And my way of dealing with that being denied was I drank for about 8-9 months non-stop, and it got completely out of control. And that was the worst drinking I did. This was 2005, and my older sister was a part of that. She was around, she was a nurse, and she was a fully blown alcoholic. She was the kind of alcoholic that, for hangovers, she used to walk around with a drip in her arm the next day to hydrate herself. She was plenty of supply of drugs and all kinds of stuff. She was doing heroin, all kinds of things at the end of her time, smoking at least. It was November 2005 that I was just about dead. I'd been hospitalised quite a few times that year. I was going to AA. I had an old guy. I'd gone back to Wodonga for that year. There's an old guy there called Jimmy, he'd be in his 70s now, and he was an AA. And he was my sponsor. He's a great old guy. And I used to ring him and tell him that, geez, Jimmy, I'm just about to go down and get a bottle of rum and a slab of beer. And he said, well, you didn't, Dave, you called me. And we'd talk for an hour, and we'd have a sincere connection and talk on the phone for an hour, and then he'd get off the phone and I'd go to the bottle shop. And so what I did was did a runner, basically, did a geographical, and I went up to Sydney to just get away from everybody I knew, my sister, all the people I was drinking with who were criminals that the police were after, and I was getting myself into stuff that I never had done before. And just after Christmas, I got a phone call up in Sydney that my sister had hanged herself, and she'd had a few suicide attempts before, but this time it succeeded. And my girlfriend had come over from America at that stage, and we were living together in a flat. After my sister had killed herself, and then my girlfriend went back to America, I came back to this big empty flat in Sydney, and it just all kind of hit me at once, and I was white knuckling it. And I was using all the spiritual stuff that I'd learned and trying to think that I could do it by myself, and I couldn't. And I went to the bottle shop and I got my usual supply. It was a slab of beer and a bottle of Plonk, vodka, or I think it was Bundy rum that I got. I had a bottle of Xanax, I had some ganja, and I was just going to go for it. And I opened up beer, and I lost it. And I knew if I had that drink, I was going to be dead. I knew I was going to be dead. So I got the yellow pages out, and I looked at AA, and I rang somebody and I spoke to someone on the phone. And I had the gift of early sobriety, the absolute desperation. I had got thrown in the towel. I couldn't stop drinking. I couldn't live. I couldn't do anything. There was no way I was going to get my visa. I had no money. I couldn't do my work. I was lost, completely lost, and I had this guilt thing too, because I felt like I had all these spiritual teachings, and I had no idea how to implement it in my life, absolutely none. And I had to start from ground zero, and I had to give up on me. And it wasn't a big spiritual experience like I had before, but it was gradual. And I did 90 days, 90 meetings, 90 days, and I was still a wreck, and I still had to use sedatives to sleep in the early months that I was there. But I remember after about 60 days, I went to my carrying bar meeting up in Sydney near Cronulla, and which was one of my favourite meetings. It was a Wednesday night, and I came home this night, and no booze, no sedative, no sex, no nothing, and something happened that hadn't happened that I can never remember actually happening. That I just fell asleep, and I started to get a bit of the serenity that people talked about, and I started to basically find my own higher power, and I realised that all the stuff that I'd studied and all the stuff, it wasn't personal. It was the old God that I was using, and I had to find a new God, and I had to do it by giving up, just completely giving up, and through sponsorship and people that had learnt before me, I started to learn how to actually do the steps and find my God, and start to realise some great truths. So there is only one real decision that you ever really make, and it's the one for God. I love listening to Sandy B and a lot of the other great stuff you can find on the internet. I was listening to Sandy B last night, and he was talking about I was never able to give up control of my life, and I still can't, because I never did have control of my life, and I never will. And that's what I've learned in this program. I have absolutely no control. This program has taught me just how to accept everything that happens, and it's perfect. Accept what's happened to my family, my sister, and not be attached to it. It's me as an alcoholic. I struggle when I attach myself to any idea that I have. And if I can just allow everything to be. I know I'm travelling well when I can walk into this room or any other room, and I realise I don't have to change a goddamn thing. There's nothing that I have to change about me or you. Everything's perfect. Even my sister's suicide, I'm completely at peace with it. You know, because I've come, my higher power, my God, He doesn't know if I'm alive or dead in my illusion of who I think that I am. I'm with Him all the time. And when I'm having a good experience of Him, I experience that. I experience that I'm with Him no matter what I think I am, or who I think I am in this world. And it's that kind of wisdom that stops me from carrying on in this constant chatter in my mind that really basically destroys me. But it's like I said, so I don't attach to any thought that I have, and I can only do that through the grace of God, and let Him help me do that. So it's really helped me decide for God. And as I said, I'm 7 and a bit years sober, and after about 3 or 4 years, I started to get pretty cocky about it. It's actually when I moved back to Melbourne, 2009, and I stopped coming to meetings, and I stopped giving it away. I stopped doing any kind of service position. I stopped the unity. I stopped every part of the fellowship of what AA is all about. And it was a slow decline. And I didn't drink, but over the last year and a half, the depression that I had, cunning, baffling, and powerful. It's like if I'm doing the program this way, my alcoholism will come this way. It's like they say while you're doing your recovery, that your disease is in the corner doing push-ups, and I can't emphasise how true that is. Even when you think that you are doing it, it'll come and get you at another angle, you know. And it's like you've got to be ready for that. The only way to be ready for that is to do the suggested things and help. And for me, it's about helping other people and giving it away. And in the last 3 or 4 months, I've started to be able to do that again, and the peace and the serenity that I'm starting to feel again, like I did in early recovery, is starting to come back, and it's I'm so unbelievably grateful for that. You know, and a year ago I was complaining about everything. You know, and now I'm remembering simple things like that. If you drive a motor car in this world, you're in the top 5% richest people in the world. You know, it's so easy to have a gratitude list. There's so much we should be grateful for. And it's all about perception and the way we think about things. And that's what the disease does. it makes me think shitty stuff about absolutely every aspect of my life. And then if I have, as I said, this second recovery that it feels like I'm having now, I can stop and think, no, it's not actually true. There is another way. And I like saying this because I think it's absolutely true too. There's not a problem that you can have that can't be changed, that can't be solved with a change of mind. And this program's helped me to change my mind about everything and start to live life again the way God wants me to. Oh, there. Thanks a lot.